Welcome to the Raptors Weekly. Is it called? I don't know. I don't know what this one is called. It's a post-game reaction podcast for Game 1. The Raptors have surrendered home court advantage in the postseason, or at least in this playoff series, by losing 190 to the Indiana Pacers at home. A horrible performance on all accounts. And joining me to discuss said horrible performance is William Liu. Hey, man.
Hey, guys.
How you feeling, Will?
Not great, man. Not great. Yeah.
Where does the anger lie?
Where does the anger lie? This is nice. Are you gonna be on like the psychiatry chair and I'll be on the couch? Is that?
Well, we'll start off there. That way, then we can switch positions, maybe.
Fair enough. I mean, the anger lies in this sort of sense of like trying to escape past, right? The past. Like, okay, the Raptors have been horrible in the playoffs. We get that. We think this is this is a different team. It is a different team. You win 56 games. You come in. You have an ideal matchup. The Pacers are not some sort of fantastic team by any means. And then the same shit happens every single time. And then you look at the things that have failed you. I mean, I'm just gonna lay it out right there. DeMar DeRozan and Dwayne Casey failed the Raptors in Game 1. And it might have doomed the Raptors for the rest of this playoff series.
DeMar DeRozan, Dwayne Casey. All right, okay, it's fair enough. I mean, that just some quick stats coming from this game. Lowry and DeRozan combined are 8 for 32 for 25%. The rest of the team is 22 for 47 for 47%. So those two obviously did not have good games. Very similar games to really last season against the Washington Wizards. Very similar way which DeRozan was stopped. Essentially, he was unable to drive, and when he's unable to drive, he's unable to get to the free throw line, and his jumper wasn't working because it was contested. It's same old story here, but let's back up and just try to put our, like non-emotional hats on. And,
that's not going to be possible tonight.
Well, let's start with the decision of starting Norman Powell against Monta Ellis, which I thought was a good move. I thought that was a good positive move by Dwayne Casey. Powell's been playing well. Ellis has been known to explode in the past. He led Dallas in scoring last year. Powell's been playing well, so that particular decision, at least I thought, was a positive one and a good one.
Yeah, well, that was fine, honestly. Monta Ellis, the only reason he had a good game was because he hit 3 triples, all off pull-ups, which is not what you would expect out of Monta Ellis. And none of them were with Powell guarding him, so Powell's fine. Actually, Powell played like a seasoned vet, honestly. He continues to play that way. He pushed it in transition twice, got 2 nice baskets, including an and one around Paul George. I mean, he wasn't the problem at all.
Yeah, well,
and
Will, I'm trying to guide you through this, man. I'm trying to calm you down and guide you through the conversation here. We can shit on DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry for the next 40 minutes, but let's just start off where, with the starting lineup. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, all right, yeah. Okay. No, Powell's fine. I think he should continue to start. Even Scola was fine.
That was actually my next thing. Scola versus Lavoy Allen was something that we expected Scola to start and not play heavy minutes, and he started and played 15 minutes. Was not a defensive liability at all. Had a couple of nice hoops in transition, or one in transition. I think one was in the low block, which was very nice. So all the starting lineup preparations and all that worked out for the Raptors, at least to start the game off.
Yeah, I mean, Scola, actually, the logic in starting Scola in the playoffs is, at least the Pacers don't have anyone to hurt Scola defensively. And then Scola, at least he's like a steady hand. You're not going to have, 2 of your best players, shook the whole game. And at least Scola can give you Scola things. Like, he took a charge. He made like this little push shot. I mean, that's Scola. That was fine. I mean, Scola wasn't the problem. Jonas was amazing. We're going to talk about Jonas, I'm sure, but he had like almost a triple-double in the first quarter.
Yeah, and his first quarter play was quite impressive. He was dominating the glass. Really, he was easily the most strongest guy on the court for both teams, really.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of one, it was 24-19. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry struggled to start, but 24-19, your 2 best players aren't firing. You got to feel okay with the start. That you're up by 5. The Pacers aren't getting blown out, so they're kind of happy on their end. We're okay knowing that our 2 best players haven't going. JV's gotten going. Powell's playing okay. Good start, good first quarter for the Raptors. Although the warning signs were there with the shot quality of DeMar DeRozan.
They were horrible. I mean, you knew that Paul George was going to come out and defend him. Paul George is one of the best defensive players in the league. He's ideally suited to guard someone like DeRozan, and the Pacers, basically threw extra defenders into the paint every single time DeRozan or Lowry got into their drives, right? And early on, DeRozan tried to attack the hoop, but once he got there, guys like Jan Mahimni and Miles Turner had like 4 blocks in the first half. Like it wasn't working, right? But instead of sort of resetting the offense or finding the open man or anything like that, they just kept trying to force the issue. And if you take away the drive for DeRozan, he goes to the pick and pop jumper. But like you said, Paul George is contesting really well in those. And realistically, you're not really going to beat a team if you're through DeRozan if he's not getting to the free throw line and he's shooting a lot of mid-range jumpers instead. And even those weren't dropping. So it was a horrendous performance, man.
It's just that once his drive wasn't working, once he tried to go by and get by Paul George, or even on the switch get by Monta Ellis, or they were essentially switching on him whenever it was convenient for them. When he couldn't do that initial penetration, he settled, and that's when he has to learn to just pass the ball off and work it around and try to get inside the paint through some other avenue. He can't be the only one to get into the paint for the Raptors, because that's what Indiana wants you to do. They want DeRozan to try and force the game and try to do it by himself, and that's exactly what he did. His play essentially played right into Indiana's hands. Whereas if he had just, on the initial drive, he got blocked off, he can't penetrate, that's fine. Pass it off, go to Patrick Patterson, he's got a bit of a drive. Our best moments in this game was when Corey Joseph was at point guard and he was able to penetrate and get into the paint. That was essentially our best stretch, and that happened with DeRozan not even in the play. So it's this recognition that if it's not working for you, there are others on the court who it is working for. Indiana has weaknesses at other positions, and you can exploit them that way. Corey Joseph is one of them, but the lack of touches for JV in the post against a defense that did not know how to handle him. I think JV, whenever he did get the ball within like 6-7 feet, he always got a good shot, but we never kind of switched our offense away from DeMar DeRozan penetrating fruitlessly into something else. It was always the same thing, and that's the frustrating part, and that's the thing that haunts me from last year, is that when something is known not to work, you try again. Another criticism of DeMar DeRozan is that he is, when he wants to be, when he's like focused on being a point forward, when he's like, today is a game where I'm going to dish the ball out, I'm going to set my teammates up, he's able to rack up 7, 8, 9 assist games. That's a proven skill that he has. But he almost has to enter the game with that mindset, and then he executes it. It's difficult for him to like switch midway. Like when it wasn't working early, maybe he should have played a different role instead of being the guy who takes 19 shots and 5 for 19 shooting. It's that switch he never made, and we know that he's capable of being a creator or being somewhat a playmaker basically. But today we just didn't see any of it. And switching to Kyle Lowry here, Will, DeRozan's going to get a lot of the heat here, 5 for 19, but Lowry was equally poor, 3 for 13.
Yep, 3 for 13, 1 for 7 on the 3, 6 turnovers, 5 fouls. Like, this is horrendous. Oh my God! And the 4 of 9 free throw shooting. He shoots 82% on the season. Yeah. Goes 4 of 9 from the free throw line, and it was a close game. At one point, it was the Raptors were like down 2, and they had missed 12 free throws up to that point. And DeRozan and Lowry, both uncharacteristic, missing a combined 7 free throws. I mean, you gotta credit George Hill for the way he guarded Lowry. George Hill all season long has guarded Lowry pretty well. He's really physical. He's bigger than Lowry, and so he has the length to bother him. And the refs weren't really calling a lot of the more physical plays, which is fine. Like, honestly, it's fine.
Which is expected of the postseason.
Exactly. It's completely fine. Like, it's not the refs' fault. It's not anyone else's fault. It's just George Hill played really great defense, and Lowry, he just couldn't get it going. Like with DeRozan, he would get into the lane and he would find extra defenders there. Again, this is just there's a reason for why some of these things happen, right? And there's just a lot of extra defenders. At least with Lowry, he would occasionally kick it back out and try to reset the play, especially when Corey Joseph's out there. That's why the 2 point guard lineups are really nice, because you kind of have this consistent flow to the offense, right? You can always reset. But yeah, man, it's like Lowry, he still forced his shot a little bit too.
A lot of pull-ups, a lot of pull-up jumpers.
But that's a shot. Yeah. That's a shot from deep. The pull-up 3 is one of his big weapons, and he couldn't hit the 3 at all.
It's just that when the team's down like 4 and you rely on Lowry to hit that pull-up J and it doesn't go in, it just gives the other team that much of a momentum that like the commentators comment like they I think for every shot that DeRozan and Lowry took, the ESPN commentators basically said what the field goal percentage was at the time for both of them combined. And it just I think fans watching the game I think got a little frustrated by that too. But Lowry's pull-ups, you don't have a problem with him at all.
That's his shot. If his shot is actually broken, then we have a bigger problem.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't have an issue with his shot selection. I had an issue with his shot making, really. When I look at his 13 field goal attempts, maybe 1 or 2 was forced, whereas DeMar DeRozan's 19, I think like 15 of them were just not good shots.
Yeah, there's one play where the Raptors got an offensive rebound. I think it was the third quarter, and the Pacers were making a push. They got an offensive rebound off one of his misses, and then they kicked it back out to him, and he's at the 3-point line. Yeah. He decides to shoot. What are you doing? You can't make threes, man. Yeah. Exactly. He wasn't wide open in the corner or off a catch and shoot. Those are fine for DeRozan, honestly. Those are good shots. I'm not going to critique him for that. Yeah. It's an above the break 3. He takes it and he clanks it again. Yeah, and then the Pacers go the other way and Paul George scores.
But did you see the space he was being given on that 3? It was like 9 feet. There was no way. Like I actually screenshotted that play, the one you're talking about, and I was about to post it on Twitter with like a length of how many feet are around him. I mean, when somebody gives you that many feet, you gotta shoot. I don't blame him for shooting that one because the defense is daring your starting shooting guard to make a wide open 3. You have to take that.
Yeah, but he's not good at making above the break threes.
Wide open, nobody within 8 feet around him.
Yeah, that's probably one of his best shots of the night. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. It was just frustrating because immediately it was like, what are you doing, man? I mean, try to go somewhere else, But man,
we'll talk about whether they can rebound from this, but let's switch to Jonas Valanciunas. And I thought one thing the Raptors did really well in this game was contest for rebounds. I think I'm going to look at the final rebounding numbers. It's 52-38. They dominated the glass. I think both JV and Biyombo and even Patterson were very aggressive on either end of the court, getting rebounds. Even the ones that they had no business getting, they were contesting. And they got a lot of 50-50 balls. I think Indiana maybe got 1 or 2 50-50 rebounds in this game because the Raptors were all over the glass really. And Jonas Valanciunas, I think he ended with 19 rebounds. Is the star against I don't know. What did you make of his 19 rebounds? I thought he was awesome overall.
Yeah, he was fantastic. The Raptors' bigs were fantastic. Even Bismack Biyombo, he kind of killed the offense as he usually does, but he was solid on defense. Jonas was just like a monster. 20 offensive rebounds. That's massive. The Raptors out-rebounded the Pacers by 14. Like, those extra possessions, those are huge. And, JB's a little bit unlucky to not finish with more points because, some of those little putbacks, he missed a couple of those, but whatever. The point is that he fought his way to the offensive rebound and he got them. And again, like you said earlier, the Raptors didn't really look for him in the block at all. He got blocked by Miles Turner in the first quarter, and then they kind of just moved away from it. It's like, well, you kind of expect JB to beat this rookie. No offense to Miles Turner, who had a great game, but like just because he got blocked one time, it doesn't mean okay now that doesn't work for tonight. Yeah. And like, if you're gonna apply it didn't work, then like, why did you go to DeRozan for 19 times? I think a lot of this stems back to Dwayne Casey, and I mean, I want to give Jonas his due. He set like a franchise record for rebounds or something. That's congrats to him. He had a great game. But like, I feel like a lot of this is on Dwayne Casey, and like, just you gotta take control of your team. You gotta take control of your team. You got to direct them, and the substitution patterns, they were very, very odd. Very odd.
I don't know. Patterson should have played a lot more.
Yep.
I thought when he was in the game, he was extremely effective. I think he was one of our best defenders. I think he stopped. I counted 2 fast break points. Just
3.
Like 3. Was it 3? Like really
3 fast breaks.
3 on ones. He basically stopped, and Indiana ended up missing on the subsequent possession. So Patterson, you may as well have 6 more points because he played that well. 3-point shot, 1 for 1, 4 for 5 field goals. Just a solid game offensively, and he was probably the only guy who defended Paul George relatively well.
Yeah. Okay. This is the most frustrating thing for me with Dwayne Casey, from one of the most frustrating things from this game, right? So Paul George is going off in the fourth quarter after he gets subbed back in, okay? And he's doing all this damage against DeRozan. He beats him on like 5 straight possessions or something like that. As soon as DeRozan comes back in midway through the fourth quarter, Paul George beats him on 5 straight possessions. Dwayne Casey calls timeout, decides to put in Jonas, and then take out Patterson and then put in Carroll. Like that, you're taking too much defense off the court. Yeah. And like, you're still leaving DeRozan out there. I mean, I guess you're realistically not going to bench DeRozan, but like, it's the playoffs, man. He's clearly got nothing. He's not giving you anything defensively because at that point he was guarding Solomon Hill, who was like almost an absolute zero on defense. And by the way, Solomon Hill beat DeRozan for a key offensive rebound because DeRozan didn't box out. Solomon Hill came from all the way from the 3-point line. DeRozan's sitting in the paint, doesn't box him out. Solomon Hill gets the rebound, and then Jonas fouls him. That's Jonas' 6th foul. That's completely on DeRozan as well. But going back to Dwayne Casey, what are you doing if you're going to take out, if you need defense, man, if you need defense, why are you taking out Bismack Biyombo? Why are you taking out Patrick Patterson and then downsizing? That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. Like, and the play calling, like going back to DeRozan, like, what are you doing, man? The guy's struggling so hard on the night, and he's getting all the shots, and he plays 37 minutes.
Yeah. So we talked about the good things Dwayne Casey did with the starting lineup,
he didn't do anything with the starting lineup. He kept it the same.
Let's give him credit. I don't want to be listen, man, I'm not a big fan of the coach. Everybody knows that.
I know.
But I give him credit where credit is due. He did have a decent starting lineup out there. So come on. Here's my 3 issues with Casey here. First, once things with DeRozan weren't working out, and you clearly saw that JV has a size advantage, a skill advantage, everything advantage against the Indiana front line, you got to go to him, especially when he actually produced on a couple of jump hooks in that first half. Number 1 issue, and that's been happening for a long time. I thought he might have changed, but no. Second, you got to play Patterson more. He can't just play 25 minutes because he is your best defender against the Indiana front line. He can guard Paul George. You can afford to switch when he's on there. It just makes too much sense to play this guy like 35 minutes a game. Third is that DeRozan defense. Hey, with like 4 minutes left, this is still a tie game or a very close game. We're at home. We should be winning this regardless of what's happening before that. But putting DeMar DeRozan on Paul George, and this is a Twitter question from @ImranPaddle, who goes, why did DeMar DeRozan guard Paul George for so long? Didn't we pay some dude to help with exactly this? Now, granted that DeMar Carroll himself was not having an awesome defensive game one-on-one against Paul George, but you got to play the odds here. You cannot expect DeMar DeRozan to guard Paul George, especially when the guy's already as Doris, what's her name? Doris from ESPN.
Doris Burke.
Doris Burke, because he's percolating, and Paul George was percolating. And as soon as he was on the boil, he saw DeMar DeRozan guarding him. And it wasn't just that he scored on DeMar DeRozan. He had about 3 assists in that fourth quarter on DeMar DeRozan's drives. He drove at him and picked out 3 passes, which led to scores.
Yep.
Those are the 3 things that bug me about Dwayne Casey in game 1.
Well, let's throw this in as well. Okay, so the Raptors are down going into the fourth. Corey Joseph has played fantastic. He had led 2 comebacks, both in the first half and in the second half, or not led comebacks, but made pushes.
No, he
basically
led them. I would say he actually led them. Yeah.
He was fantastic. He really set the tone in the first in the first half. Second half, he's doing work again. He was fantastic on the night. He had 18 points on 5 of 6 shooting. Like, that was just amazing. And then all of a sudden, Dwayne Casey subs out Corey Joseph to put in DeMar DeRozan, and then has DeMar DeRozan guard Paul George this whole time. Like, again, it's not Dwayne. Let's just add some caveats here. Okay, Dwayne Casey has done a fantastic job with the team this season to get the 56 wins. How hard they played for this man. All credit to this guy. Seriously, like, that's not to be overlooked. But like, in terms of in the playoffs, right? We've seen him in the past. He's slow to make adjustments. He sticks to his rotation no matter what, right? You saw the Pacers make some adjustments at halftime. They realized their offense wasn't working. It only produced 42 points, even though they had generated 10 turnovers, and that's usually how the Pacers score, off turnovers. Mm-hmm. They made some adjustments. They went small. They went to Solomon Hill. They sort of basically benched LaVoy Allen. They went to Miles Turner a lot more, and that opened up their offense. And obviously Paul George exploding helps a lot more, right? The Raptors made no adjustments at all. They made the same shuffles that you can expect them to do in the regular season in the playoffs. You got the same starting lineup, again, which was fine. You got the same rotations. And the one adjustment Dwayne Casey did make was he took out Lowry out of the bench unit. The Lowry plus bench unit, which was the Raptors' best lineup all season. He took that out. and basically as an idea to give Carroll more minutes with the second unit. But like, you need to maximize Carroll's minutes on Paul George, not DeMar DeRozan's minutes on Paul George. You need to maximize DeMar Carroll's minutes on Paul George. So it doesn't really matter if you're sneaking in minutes when against the Pacers bench using DeMar Carroll. That's a misuse of DeMar Carroll. No offense. And you could get, and Lowry's not working, not struggling a lot in the first quarter. Let him get his rhythm going against the second unit. Like, Ty Lawson was out there.
Exactly.
Come on.
That's the thing, right? You look at the minutes played. Like, Monta Ellis played 29 minutes because he wasn't having his greatest game, and their coach adjusted. Rodney Stuckey, of all people, like, he had a decent offensive game. Even he had that one possession where he passed up the same shot twice. It was quite funny. Ty Lawson played 17. CJ Miles had 19. So it was like better minute distribution, and he knew that. Once Monta Ellis, you knew wasn't having an amazing game, he wasn't afraid to go away from him and get in a bench guy to take the minutes. Dwayne Casey, on the other hand, is very reluctant to do that. He almost feels that there's a certain minute threshold which DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry have to play regardless of performance. Like, that's what I think his constraint is that they got to play 40 minutes and 38 minutes. That's it. Doesn't matter how they play. That's how it is. The Pacers don't appear to think that way. And just to your point, if you look at how the Raptors were trying to get their points from minute 1 to minute 3 is no different than how they were trying to get their points from minute 45 to minute 48. Whereas if you compare that to the Pacers, the way Paul George played in that fourth quarter was nowhere close to how they were getting their points in the first quarter. And that's the difference. They adjusted. And you know what, man? I hate to say it, but they have the best player in the series. And
they do. And we knew that. We knew that going into the series. I mean, we thought Lowry would play better. And again, you can say, okay, this is not Dwayne Casey's fault because Lowry and DeRozan ultimately have to play better, and that's true. It's all three of them's fault, man. It's the players' fault for not performing, and it's Dwayne Casey's fault for not giving them the opportunity to maximize their performances. And that's ultimately what you're there for as a coach, in game wise at least, right? And I get it, man. DeRozan's the guy that brought you here. He's been fantastic all season. There's no denying that. And, he obviously deserves a chance to try to win the game for you, and I get that. But, man, you got to make some adjustments. Honestly, towards the end, he was guarding Solomon Hill and not doing it effectively, and while also being a negative on offense. Then what's the point of it, right? You should just get Joseph back out there. He's a better ball handler. He moves the ball better, and he's having a better game.
And he had a shot going.
It's not a second guessing thing. This should have just happened in the moment, right? It's not like DeRozan was hot and then went cold. No, he was cold the whole game. The whole game.
I don't think anything we're saying with the benefit of hindsight.
This
is all within the game where you're watching this and you're seeing DeMar DeRozan coming for Corey Joseph, and you're like, why? You're seeing DeRozan guard Paul George. You're like, why?
Yeah.
You see Bismack Biyombo taken out in the fourth. You're like, why? We're not talking here with the benefit of like the game being over and watching the tape. This is just we're recording this like 2 minutes after the game. Just some quick Twitter hits. Some guy wants James Johnson. Some guy wants James Johnson. At Conquerman Dave goes, what if James Johnson just hacks Paul George for all of Game 2? Would that help? No, that would not help at all. Paul George is an excellent free throw shooter, and he would that would not help. What else we got?
People got to stop let go of this James Johnson thing. He's not going to come save us. This is not happening. It has never happened, and it's not going to happen.
We have a 10 times better version of James Johnson called DeMar Carroll, who is supposed to be guarding Paul George, and he played 19 minutes.
Most of the minutes were not against George.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Makes no sense. Oh God, the guy, our highest paid player, who was brought in here to guard the big three, is not guarding the big three in the postseason. It makes absolutely zero sense from any angle. You cannot justify it. And I hope somebody has the balls to actually ask Casey that in the post-game press conference.
Well, we'll see.
So Zoltan Tar also has, why do we spend money on Carroll if he can't be relied on to defend a swingman in the playoffs? We covered that. Do I go to bed all day or go ball out and pretend blah, blah, blah? I don't know what's going on there. People are frustrated, man. There's a lot of questions here. Some guy wants to hire Jeff Hornacek before Game 2.
Yeah, no.
We're not going to get to your questions, guys. I'm sorry. There's just too many out there. And some of them are, frankly, kind of a bit shit, so we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
Some guy wants to blow the team up.
Already? The team is not the problem. The team has so much talent on it. It was just being mismanaged, man.
Okay. Hey, let's talk about some some other things here. During the game,
Yeah.
the in-game ops played this video which I posted on YouTube about
I heard
the
about
top 10 things coming out of Indiana. And it was like things like, hey, KFC, number 7, they got the world's biggest plastic ball. Like basically making fun of Indiana. And number 1 was like they're 8 hours away from the greatest city in the world, Toronto. It's like, shut up. Like it was so poorly done. It was so cringy. And you know what? When you play that kind of stuff in the arena, it actually motivates the other team, man. Like not that they're looking at it, but oh my god, like it was so cringy. I felt so embarrassed the fact that was actually being played at the ACC on the jumbotron, and I don't know, it's just ugh.
Yeah, no, the ACC crowd was great. I thought they were fantastic. You don't need to spur them with these things.
Yeah.
And like, what's the idea of spurring like that, right? Like, what are you doing? We're just making blatant regionalism for no. There's no rivalry there, man. Let's not insult Indiana. Like, I don't understand.
They're nice people there. Yeah, Indiana's a lovely town. I've been there a few times.
Yeah, I mean, like,
right.
I don't know, man. Show like George Hill's hair and say like, haha, it used to be yellow,
Exactly,
or like,
yeah,
like I don't know, man. Like,
yeah,
no, the in-game
sometimes
ops
take
was
the We the
not
North
great.
a little too far.
But that's the thing. That's not We the North is like our thing, right? Like, I don't know why you would be aggressive towards other people's things, right? Like, how would you guys feel if, like, you know, at the Pacers they started chanting like I don't even know, middle.
Yeah.
They're in Middle America, but like, you know, like, oh man.
Can we talk about Terrence Ross a little bit? 14 minutes.
Yep.
2 for 8. He had a pretty terrible first half where he turned the ball over a couple times.
Horrendous her first half.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Yeah, and then rebounded a bit in the second half. Overall, I thought if you had to grade his performance first half versus second half, it goes like a D- and a B+. I want to say. What did you make of that? Actually, while you answer that question, Will, I'm going to check the quick reaction and see what Chamberlain gave him.
Okay, well, Terrence Ross's first half was like as bad as you can expect it to happen. He committed 2 fouls super early. He just wasn't making any shots. He really reminded us why his playoff PER is 3.6. 3.6, all right? That Kendrick Perkins' playoff PER is higher. And then second half, I thought he settled in a little bit more.
Yeah.
He nailed the big 3. There was a nice little pull-up shot that he did. And his defense was actually oddly effective. Not oddly effective. He's actually been pretty decent on defense all year.
Yeah.
The final line looks horrendous. Like you said, man. 2 for 8, 2 turnovers, 5 points in 14 minutes. And then you remind yourself that, you know, Terrence Ross, he's also one of those guys that just disappears in the playoffs, man. Yeah. I'm like 3.6. That's just keep that in mind. 3.6.
3.6. So, no, I'm in that video I posted of my face yesterday.
Nice.
Analyzing the series, and people were like, you're being a pussy by picking the Raptors in 7. And I'm like, dude, like if you pick a sweep or a 5-game series in favor of the Raptors, either like you don't know what the hell you're talking about, or you haven't watched the Raptors ever. And like this game kind of proved it to me because you know, just want to say I kind of told you so.
Still possible in 5, guys. I did predict 5 as well.
Even if
that was only on paper.
Even if it's in 5, dude, it's going to be a close 5. Like it's like
no, for sure. Yeah.
All these games are going to be tight, and they have the best player on the court, and they're able to score when they want against the Raptors defense, which really hasn't figured itself out.
I'm not convinced that Indiana can score whenever they want. I'm gonna put it out there.
Yeah, okay, fine, not whenever they want, but Paul George, if he's percolating, can score whenever he wants. So let's round off on Terrence Ross. He got a D- via Chamberlain. I think that's a bit harsh. I think his first half was horrible. Second half he was better. That big 3 was nice. He hit that pull-up jumper. He missed a couple of makeable shots. But in that video that I mentioned, I talked about Patrick Patterson and Terrence Ross being grouped as, you know, Patterson I would call a consistent performer, and he was that again. I think we discussed that. And Terrence Ross is still definitely in the inconsistent pile, and he showed that again. Like I think Ross's approach to the game has like improved tenfold since November and December. I really do. Mm-hmm. Now it's a question of shot making and just luck or focus. But overall, I really think even though he's having poor games, he's still trending okay. And I expect him to have a better game 2. I think those 2 turnovers in the first half really shook him a little bit.
He was so angry after that second foul too.
I'm surprised he didn't get
it was an offensive
because
foul.
He slammed that ball on the ground. But Terrence Ross, final thoughts on Terrence Ross, man.
Well, I mean, my thoughts on Terrence Ross are like my thoughts on almost all the other role players in the team. But they played fine.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they played fine. And some of the role players played great. Jonas, you're not going to get a better game out of Jonas. You really aren't, right? Patterson, you might get a better game out of Patterson, but again, 9 points on 4 or 5 shooting with 6 rebounds and great defense. I mean, I guess that's kind of what you expect out of Patterson, but Corey Joseph, right? 18 points, man, in 24 minutes. I only missed 1 shot all game. Like, you're not going to get a better game out of Corey Joseph. And it's not like any of those guys let the team down. It wasn't any of those 3. It was the Raptors' 2 star players and was the head coach who made untimely adjustments, negative adjustments. So, yeah.
It's I don't want to say it's bleak time, but let's just check some post-game quotes coming out here. Casey goes, Brian Wollstaff from The Sun goes, Casey says team was so tight. Pacers and moment of players got them tight. What?
Why are they always tight, man? Why? Always tight. Always.
It's like unless you haven't done it, unless you haven't won a playoff round, it's always going to be looming on the back of your mind. It's like that monkey on your back or whatever the saying is. Unless they actually do it, it's not. They're always going to have that self-doubt. And
but you know what it is? Like, I almost feel like Lowry and DeRozan just have to like splash cold water on their face, look in the mirror, and have one of those moments, that okay, look, whatever happened in the past, it happened in the past. Just let that shit go. Just play your game. Like, you're the better team here. You have better players on.
Well, hang on. Now, see, you can't just be doing exactly what you did last year, and that's what they did in this game. Like, you expect better ball movement, better ball distribution. The Raptors ended up with, guess how many assists they had today?
I don't know, like 17. Less than 10? 17?
17 assists.
Oh, that's actually not bad, for the Raptors at least. I mean, seriously, for the Raptors, 17 is pretty good.
Yeah, I hear you, but I think...
Remember when we beat the Pacers earlier this year? We had like 11.
Yeah.
11.
Yeah, it's like we cannot keep trying to milk DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry for wins the way for offense the way we have it in the regular season, because it's not going to work in the playoffs. What did we say all through the regular season on the site? That it's great for racking up these wins, but does this translate to playoff success? Because the style of basketball is simply different. And today it was different. It was more half court. In fact, it was the Pacers who got a lot of fast break points on this one. And in the vacuum of the half court, when you have a good defender focused on your best player, you have to do something else. You have to move the ball around. You're not going to win a game with 15 assists in this series. You've got to do something different. And whether it's DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry making that mental adjustment, saying, hey, we got to pass the ball off here, or whether it's Dwayne Casey instituting something which allows them to do that, I don't know what it is. But you just can't come into this game with the exact same game plan as you did with Washington last year and Brooklyn the year before, because it's not going to work, and it's not working.
All right, let me give you a quote from Dwayne Casey here, all right? Quote, I was searching for someone to stop Paul George. That's what I was searching for. Quote, ... we will come up with a rotation. You didn't have a rotation before this? You didn't
Why do you have to search? There's a guy sitting right there.
You literally brought DeMar Carroll to this team to stop big wing players. And then most of the minutes he played was not against Paul George. And then most of Paul George's work was done against DeRozan. Ah, man. Come on, you got to be able to see some of these things before they happen. You got to be like, shucks, Paul George got us. We'll come up with something. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like,
you knew. Can't you see this happen beforehand?
Like, I could imagine if like George Hill exploded for like 40 and we lost the game. We're like, okay, George Hill had a good game, but it's Paul George. Like, he's the only guy you got a game plan for, and he's the guy you didn't game plan for at all.
Oh man, we'll come up with a rotation. Like, come on, we'll come up with a rotation. What you do? What were you doing? Oh man. Oh god.
You got any more gems from Casey?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I got a Vogel quote right here. You know what, Frank Vogel?
Yeah.
I thought he did a good job of riling up the media by saying, the Raptors, they like to flail their arms. They get all these foul calls, and we gotta not feed into that.
He's
basically
absolutely correct. We do that.
We do that to some extent, but the Raptors generate a high number of free throws because the Raptors drive a lot. That's the ultimate truth of it, right? And then it came back out, You know, in the first quarter, I think the refs were like, yeah, let's just call a bunch of fouls on the Pacers. The Pacers picked up 5 fouls in the first 3 minutes, okay? And then after that, it was just like, all right, let's put all that issue to bed. Let's put that issue to bed. But now it's going to be in the back of the minds all the time. And Frank Vogel, even, you know, on our Twitter account, I was tweeting at Frank Vogel, about Frank Vogel, not at him. I wouldn't add him. I don't even know what his handle is. But regardless, Frank Vogel and DeMar DeRozan, these guys weren't at their best. We're expecting them to have better nights than they had tonight. They're great players. You know what I mean? Just, that little false little compliment there. He knows exactly what he's doing. Frank Vogel's an experienced guy. He knows.
And he knows what he's doing. I like his demeanor on the sidelines. He's never too, like, you know, he's not jumping up and down. He's very calm. I think, and even in those little, you know how ESPN mics up the coaches?
Yep.
Like you saw what Dwayne Casey was saying in those huddles, and it was more like, guys, we gotta, you know,
pound the rock.
Yeah, basically that kind of stuff. And what Vogel was saying was like, guys, we need 3 to 4 fast break points in the fourth quarter. It was so specific. Like it was specific instruction, a specific goal he set for the team, and it's only a 15-second clip, but who knows what goes on. But even what they showed was like him giving the team a very specific target to meet. And guess what, man? They had like 6 fast break points in the fourth, or like I think 4. I don't know how they counted that last one.
Yeah.
That was the difference in coaching in this game. One guy setting a realistic target, a specific direction, and Dwayne Casey basically coming into this postseason with the exact same game plan as last year.
Yeah, here's another gem from Casey. Quote, we'll find out who the true fans are, who's with us and who's not, because it's a long series. Come on, man.
Say again.
Come on. You're gonna question the fan base? You're really gonna question the fan base.
Oh my
Did you see the thousands of people outside the fucking arena? Do you see the people inside the arena?
Could you repeat the quote, please?
Quote, we'll find out who the true fans are and who's with us and who's not, because it's a long series. Dude. Come on, man. You can't be questioning the fan base. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? After 21 years and you shit the bed for the 3rd year in a row in game 1, you're going to question the fan base. Dude, we're here. We're here. The reason we care, the reason we're thinking, dissecting this game is because we care, man. And don't question that. Yeah. That's not a place that Dwayne Casey should go with this. I don't know what the specific context of the quote is. I only see it on Twitter, so I don't want to go too far with it, but like the fans are not the problem, man.
No. There's a question by Jesse Lawrence at J_Law86 who goes, lots of talk about the crowd getting angsty today. Angsty? Is that a word? Angsty? Lots of talk about the crowd getting angsty today during the broadcast. Do you think that actually affects the players? What do you think?
I don't know, maybe, but like ultimately the way the game goes is the players do something and then the crowd reacts. Yeah. Right? Like I thought the crowd did a great job of chanting. I thought the crowd was fine. Yeah. I don't know, man. Don't blame the crowd.
No, the crowd
blame
was fine.
Come on. Yeah. Go look at the tape. Make your you know what? Now that you've seen what happens, Paul George can score. Let's make some rotations. Let's set the rotation. Let's let's fine tune that game plan a little bit to something that's more sensible. You know what I mean? Like man. You know, the Pacers came out, executed their game plan. Great. The Raptors came out, couldn't execute the game plan. That's fine. You know, but you got to think, what was the game plan in the first place? Are we going to keep going with this game plan? Are we going to make some adjustments? What are we going to do? You got punched in the face. This is a classic Dwayne Casey thing. You got punched in the face. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah. Let's see what Blake's tweeting. I'm pretty sure I won't go 5 for 19 again, says DeMar DeRozan.
Great. So DeMar DeRozan sounds like I'm going to do what I'm going to do again, but I'm going to expect better results.
It's not about that, DeMar. It's not about what whether you're going to 5 for 19 again. It's a question of whether you're going to have the right approach to the game. It doesn't matter. You could go 8 for 18 and still lose the game. Like if the other things that happen in this game happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, are you going to play bad defense with Paul George again?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you like the game is not the idea of the game is not set up to like make Lowry and DeRozan beat the Pacers. Mm-hmm. The idea of the game is to have the Raptors beat the Pacers. And if you need to make some concessions along the way of things that aren't working, you have to play it by ear. You have to, like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing with DeRozan out down the stretch like that? Like, man, even down the stretch, we're still running ISOs for DeRozan. Yeah. God.
Like, that's the one thing about Dwayne Casey, which is a criticism of him, was that if he does make adjustments, he tends to make them between games, not during games. Like, I'm sure he's going to start game 1 with a different plan against Paul George, which I don't know why that's so complicated. I mean, it's Paul George. You got to wing fuck. Never mind. I'm sure he's going to come up with something better than what he started this game with. But it's a question of when Indiana does something different mid-game, Maybe they got, I don't know, Monta Ellis in a post-up or something now. How are you going to react to that? What if they go really big again against your small lineup and have success? What are you going to do then? That's the part of Dwayne Casey that I'm never confident about. Like, he's going to make a couple of adjustments before game 2. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. But once Vogel makes in-game adjustment, I think Dwayne Casey's that's when he struggles. Lowry with the quote, he goes, "We didn't play well, but we're positive. We got some looks that we liked and some looks we can make." So they're staying positive. I think they're going like, we got good shots, but we just didn't make them. I think that's the angle we're going at here.
Yeah, that's a bad way to approach it, man. I mean, yeah, you're going to expect them to shoot better, but, like, you got to – it's two things, right? It's, like, luck and then strategy, right?
Yeah.
There's flaws in the strategy as well. That's, look, they are going to shoot better. They are going to perform better on offense. I have no worries about that. Man, yeah, I don't know. All right, what do you think? Can the Raptors still can they still come back down from this 1-0 deficit
of course
with
they
home
can.
court advantage?
I think so. I think so. I mean,
theoretically. We
might record a podcast tomorrow and talk about Game 2, previewing a little bit, but I definitely think this series, I think the Raptors should still be favored in, because they are a better team. Indiana is just a collection of half-decent players who haven't been playing like a team all season long. If you look at their roster man for man, they got a decent roster. Stuckey, Lawson, C.J. Miles, Monta Ellis, Paul George. These are decent players.
Some of them are okay.
I mean, yeah, Stuckey's in his
Stuckey, Lawson, like those guys.
I mean,
not good players.
They have been good in the past, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
they've had years where they look like above average NBA players, maybe even better than above average at times. Now they're maybe in the decline of their careers, but they're in the playoffs. Everybody tries harder. They have the potential to have good games. That's all I'm saying. I mean, and in a playoff series where everybody's focused in, why wouldn't you expect Rodney Stuckey to up his game? He had some great seasons with the Pistons way back when, so it's still in him. It's not a different. I don't know, man. I just think we're underrating the Pacers, and that's what I said in my video yesterday, and I still believe that. Having said that, Will, flip it back to you. Do the Raptors still win the series?
Yeah. It'll just be more difficult than I had anticipated based on their season performance and how they matched up on paper. I really thought that DeRozan and Lowry would be over this thing, man. I mean, I think part of it is mental with them as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Let's try to wrap things up a little bit here. My call was the Raptors would split at home. They would split in Indiana, and the last 3 games would be won by the home team, and that's how we would win the series. And
man, that's a hard series to win that way.
Yeah, but I think we're going to win Game 2 handily. Let's call it that. I'm going to call.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. Let's hope Dwayne Casey makes some great between game adjustments, because there's enough talent on the floor where, again, the talent advantage favors the Raptors. Yeah, it's just a matter of getting the players to perform.
Yeah. Let's check what the Indiana Pacers headlines are. The Pacers blog is the Pacers stun Raptors. A monster second half from Paul George helped fuel the Indiana Pacers to a Game 1 upset of the Toronto Raptors. They only had trouble with Jonas Valanciunas, so they're basically saying that Miles Turner somewhat negated the effectiveness of Jonas Valanciunas. And I think that's true. Turner had a really good game. JV had a good game, and Turner was like, we knew he was their big that we would have most trouble with, and guess what? We ended up having most trouble with Miles Turner. It was like
he's very talented.
It went as planned for the Pacers when it came to Miles Turner.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus has to be find a way for again, like this is something we said earlier too, right? DeRozan was forcing the issue, but like this whole season, we've seen DeRozan come up with counters. We've seen Dwayne Casey drop counters for DeMar DeRozan to get open. Because, again, it's not like the Pacers are doing something completely out of the blue, right? They're doing what most teams do. They stick a physical defender on DeRozan, they force him towards sideline, and then they keep a big in the lane, and then it's hard for DeRozan to score. The team has come up with counters to that, and it just didn't run any of those things. It's frustrating. Anyway. All right, man.
Somebody goes, could you explain to me how Solomon Hill had 10 free throws in this game?
Yeah, that really took me by surprise. I had no idea why.
Yeah, he kind of snuck up.
Most of them were just hustle plays, I feel like.
Yeah. The Raptors did get into the penalty very early, or got Indiana into the penalty very early in the first quarter, and I'm surprised that
3 minutes.
Yeah, with less than 3 minutes. I think 2:55 into the game, we were shooting free throws, and I thought that would be like what would drive DeMar DeRozan. Maybe that's what happened to him. Maybe he saw that hey, I got a chance to get some, free throws here, and he drove, didn't get the call, ended up taking some bad shots, and credit to Indiana too for not biting for his pump fakes. I think they know that when he dribbles once inside and turns around, his first instinct is to fake that shot and not take it. And you saw him when he did that. Paul George or Lavoy Allen, whoever it was, basically just stood still. And
George bit on the first time he guarded DeRozan got him on the up fake. After that, George was perfect, absolutely perfect in guarding DeRozan.
Yeah. Will?
Yeah.
I think anything else from you before we wrap this up?
No, just go Raptors, and I hope they can overcome this, right? I hope the team is mentally tough enough to overcome this, because it's so hard to judge body language from the screen. I'm not trying to play some sort of psychiatry, but just to me, it looked really like DeRozan and Larry became very disheartened after the first half.
Yeah. Your best player for the Raptors of the night?
Jonas,
yeah.
Not even close.
Jonas. I'd go second. I'd go Corey Joseph and Patrick Patterson tied for second. I think both had solid games. I think our best stretch, as I said, was when Corey Joseph was in the game, and along with Patrick Patterson. I thought that they played tremendous. Big kudos for Patrick Patterson, man, for his defensive game today. I thought he was superb, and I really hope he gets more run. And I hope Dwayne Casey makes some adjustments where there's alternate sources of offense, and not every play starts with DeMar DeRozan driving against the wall of the Indiana Pacers. And there's something else out there.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps it up. Will, thanks, man. Game 2 prediction?
Raptors win by 5.
All right, I'm going to go Raptors win by 10. It sounds delusional calling that after we dropped Game 1, but historically I think the Raptors, even against Brooklyn when they lost Game 1, I think they bounced back to win Game 2 or something like that.
They did.
Did they?
That was a very fun game to go to.
I don't know what it was, something like that. We're a little depressed. I know you are. Hopefully things will be better after Game 2 on Monday night. Dwayne Casey is going to find a rotation to stop Paul George, which is good news. Better
stuff.
Late than never. Any starting lineup changes for next game, Will?
I mean, I would try to start DeMar Carroll. It's not even Norman Powell's fault. It's just that, and I thought DeRozan did an okay job against Paul George to begin the game, but once George got settled in, he just kept getting matched up with DeRozan. So you have DeMar Carroll for this reason. If you can match up DeMar Carroll's minutes with Paul George's minutes as much as possible, then hopefully that's what you do. Because Carroll, again, he's coming off injury. He's not as fast as he was, but he still did a fine job defensively, I thought.
Yeah.
So maximize those minutes. So that means making this change the starting lineup. And I guess pulling a rookie is much easier than pulling 35-year-old veteran Luis Scola, which has proven impossible.
I got a problem with Scola. I have no problem with the starting lineup, actually. I have no issue with it at all. It's just like what happens with those 5 guys is more the question. So I don't know. With DeMar Carroll, I think he had like one play there with 2 minutes left when Paul George was guarding him. George just crossed him over around the screen and hit a jumper. I think that was. I think I posted that on Twitter. I mean, he wasn't amazing against Paul George either, but if you had to play somebody, you got to pick him over DeRozan because DeRozan was just downright poor. Okay, so that's it, man. Let's sign off.
Yeah.
We'll see you again after Game 2, or we might record a Sunday podcast, the Raptors Weekly, on a regular time slot, but definitely we'll record a Game 2 post-game podcast, and we'll have post-game podcast for every playoff game. Until then, listener, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you feel better. Rate us on iTunes and Stitcher, and we'll see you again after Game 2. Bye-bye.